Welcome to 5 Ways to Improve Your Future. We're going to look today at lessons learned. I'm Liz, and I'll be joined by Emma, my colleague in this conversation. We have these 5 life lessons we'd like to talk about with you today. Let's start with a poll. Interesting, huh? A lot of different kinds of issues, but lots on setting boundaries.
We also have 2 additional comments. So listen to your heart rather than meeting expectations from externals and being intentional on priorities.
One of the call to actions we wanted to talk about was things we need to be mindful of. One, there's a huge disparity still in project management with gender. And second, there's a huge opportunity for all of us, men and women alike, to build our careers, advance in the field, and have the job we want, model the career we want to create. And Emma's going to kick us off with what it means to get off the hamster wheel.
So this is the first topic we have, and we discussed with Liz that both of us faced with this situation that we work a lot and we don't know why, we cannot express, and we don't market what we did. So I have a story of working a lot overtime, working on something I told no one I'm working on, even not my manager, because I believed it's a good idea to work on it. And when I have the results, I will tell everyone that I solved this problem. But it was not appreciated, and it was not even known that I'm working hard on that thing. So it is something I would like to tell to my past self, like you need to set first of all your boundaries, and don't work overtime on something you don't tell anyone about that you are working on, and share the expectation and set the expectation with your manager, saying like, this I feel is important, this I want to work on, or is it something out of the scope of what we are planning to do as a group and I shouldn't take care about. So I really believe this is something that most of us face with in work, and I really believe we need to market ourselves as well. Like it happens to most of us, and I think maybe it's a woman thing that we achieve something, but we don't tell anyone because we don't want to brag about it. And if you don't tell what you did, then who else will talk about it? So this is a lessons learned for myself, for my past self, and still believe it's applicable on me, meaning I would advise it still for myself, like I should tell what I do. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I love that one. I love these points you brought up. I think we've all responded to the setting boundaries point. In terms of marketing yourself, for me, it's 2 things. One is sharing your accomplishments, as you just said, but also, and I love this point made, I don't know who made it, about intentions and listening to your heart, those 2 comments made by our listeners. That relates to marketing yourself too, because it's about setting out your brand. I call it Liz Inc. It's helping myself know what's important, what do I value, how do I want to work, what respect boundaries do I have, meaning boundaries of people respecting me and me respecting myself, so that that becomes part of my brand. People respect you when they know what to expect. And this is a way of doing that, of creating a brand for yourself so that people will respect your boundaries. I think our male counterparts do this much better than we do. The next one is manage your energy. So this is one that's near and dear to my heart, because I wrote a whole blog about, I don't manage my time, I manage my energy, because you might have 24 hours in the day, but I do not have 24 hours of intense energy to give. I'm a creative, but I'm also a project manager, and I also do a lot of legal work. And those things all demand different levels of energy and different kind of mindsets, for me at least. Knowing that and knowing how to control a couple of things about outside influences really makes a difference to my ability to deliver the work I want to deliver, but also not burn myself out. One is being honest with myself about my limits and knowing when I need to take time off. Another is saying no to energy drainers. I have a friend in IPMA, and he says, I follow the energy. So if you're following the energy, you're going to make sure that you are actually in control of where you're spending your energy, and it's creating value back to you. Now, if you have a job, there's going to be times in every job where you're not doing something you love, but if it makes sense in the bigger picture, then you know you're on track. And finally, avoid toxic situations, including toxic people and toxic drainers, energy drainers. And I think for me, this is one of my biggest issues, because I am a people pleaser and I want everyone to succeed. I can get involved with toxic people. And my biggest lesson learned this year, because I've had an unusual amount of it this year, is to really manage those interactions, really reduce those interactions. Burnout is real. 77% of employees feel they've experienced burnout in their jobs. And in fact, this data was based on jobs in the last year. I think COVID years and then coming back from COVID have meant that people are experiencing more burnout. And we just have to be mindful of that, because we can hurt ourselves for the long term by trying to pretend we're not burnt out in the short term.
I totally agree with this point. I think it's really important to manage my energy over my time. And I feel it after long days of work that I need to make some decisions or progress on my personal life. And I just cannot think more that day. And if it happens like every day, we miss some good opportunities in our personal life or even in our work. So I believe it's a good point. And yeah, we need to focus on ourselves when are our best focus times, and make sure that we take care of ourselves. And also, yeah, I don't need to mention doing sports and recharge after long days of thinking.
I completely agree, and I think this second item is very strongly related to the first one. But it's not always possible to avoid toxic situations or toxic persons at work. I mean, you cannot always just quit at the moment that something like that happens. How do you deal with this?
When people don't value my opinion, or I'm telling them how I feel and they don't acknowledge it, I say something. Still got to work with these people, but I also can show them that I have boundaries and I have self-respect enough to not accept toxic situations. Another thing you can do is simply limit the amount of time you're exposed to them.
I think it's also depending on the situation, whether it's a personal toxic situation or whether it's a work toxic situation. But on the work toxic situation, sometimes I find a third person to leverage it and to see whether he or she can solve it as a intermediate.
Next one, be outcome oriented. And this kind of relates to, it helps to deal with all those other issues if you really are laser focused on what's important to you and what's helping your career and what's driving your energy.
I think these points are connected, yes. And yeah, like most of us are project managers here in the call, we don't need to explain that. Once we know the goal, what we want to achieve, it's just good to plan for it and see, like, have some milestones in between to see what you achieved. But one thing I always forget, this is something that I can apply for my personal life as well. And I shouldn't run my personal life is like spending my time with things that could be good sometime in the future, and not like seeing what future I would like to have and then focus on that and make the right steps. And I think it's a really good point, like a lesson learned for me, and something I need to consider, that I can also manage my life similar to a project and know what I want and do the actions to achieve it, rather than doing some actions hoping that it will end up in a good result. What do you think, Liz?
One of the things about having energy is focusing on the most important thing. There's that old picture we all know where you have a jar, sand, little rocks and big rocks. If you put the big rocks in first, you'll get more of the important things done. If you let all the sand, which represents all the noise people want you to do, but it's not part of your personal goals, you'll find that the jar fills up. Your energy, your time, and your effort at work or at home or in your projects you want to be involved in, you'll find that you don't have time for those because other people are setting your agenda. And one of my personal goals in life that's been since I first started working when I was 19, nobody else will be able to decide how I live my life except me. And that mantra has kept me safe and sane for a lot of years. Personalizing your point of view. Pigeonhole is not maybe a term that's used here in Europe, but pigeonhole means classifying a group of people. All Europeans are like this, all Dutch people are like that, all Americans always do this. People are more complicated. So it's not just the culture we grew up in and our individual experiences and our own life journey, but also our personalities, to the point already made. In addition, it's the combination of all those things. So you might have a work environment that demands a certain kind of way of working that wouldn't be your natural way of working. If someone shows you who they are, believe them. So not trying to remake people into the image you want them to be, but understanding people for who they really are and just letting them be. I don't know if you guys follow Mel Robbins, but she also talks about this, so that you're not trying to micromanage the world. And I find that extremely freeing. 88% of professionals say having a diverse team increases product value. We tend to be noticeably better by metrics than men at creating collaborative groups, creating diverse groups, and have high performing teams because we're getting the best out of everyone in the way they want to work from their point of view. So I think there's a lot of power in this personalization of your point of view for women. This is one of our superpowers, as I call it.
Yeah, I think this one can be a bit of a challenge because it takes time to recognize some of these differences.
It can be a huge time drainer. I ran a project at ABN AMRO Bank for 7 years, and I had 250 people ultimately who reported to me, but I had 9 direct reports. And one of the things I developed there was when we were launching either a new team or group or piece of work, we had a kickoff meeting where we had one sheet where people could fill out that sheet and say, how do they like to work? What motivates them? What frustrates them? And the power of that is letting people tell you who they are at the outset. And they're not just doing that one-on-one to you, they're doing that to the whole team. So the whole team can kind of gel. It can be a real fast tracker to this point, because I agree, it can otherwise be a drain. Get and give back.
I think it's great to be part of like a mentoring program and having a mentor. And this is something that it sounds weird for some people. It's something people don't consider for themselves, but I would like to highlight that most of us had or have a mentor, which is like officially not called as mentorship, but still someone who is our manager or someone in the workplace that supports us, and we can go there sharing our honest feelings and get feedback how to move on, how to make the next step in our career. So there are some situations, there are some hours, and there are some long relationships which are like officially not called mentorship, but still you are mentored or you are mentoring someone else. So I find it really important. And now that you elevate it to a level called mentorship, or you find an official mentor that can really help you get the focus on yourself and see where you can go and where you can bring the other person as well in this mentoring relationship. So I really appreciate this point, and I think it's really important. And advice to my past self and also advice for my present self, that it's a good thing and we need to have the possibility to have a mentor.
87% of mentoring partners feel empowered and have greater confidence. It's a journey, which we have up on this slide. And that means that throughout your life, you might have coaches and mentors that serve different purposes. You might have a coach inside your company to help you understand the politics or how a particular thing is done. And you might have an external mentor to help you create your life plan or create your career path.
It's not a must to make it official, and it's not a must to progress together for years. Sometimes you just need to have an advice and someone who listens to you for hours and then helps. Like, I feel like this is something you want rather than the thing you say. So I think it's just good, and any form helps you.
I would like to add as well, if you talk about career, so you have, of course, a mentor and a coach, but also think about a sponsor. Because sometimes you have within a company, preferably an executive, to have as a sponsor. So it's outside your mentoring, outside your management line, but to have a sponsor which you meet maybe once a year, twice a year, but at least someone who tracks your career, but also spots opportunity. So I would recommend that as well.
I love that. So we had this list of do's and don'ts. It's just a kind of friendly reminder to kind of wrap up the discussion.
But it was a very inspiring talk. Thank you very much.
Appreciate all of your time, your encouragement, and your inspiration. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you in September.